All right, strap in everyone, because today we are going deep on a topic that you guys have been requesting a lot, the psychology of persuasion. But, and here's where it gets interesting, we're going to be looking at it through a specific lens, the lens of seduction. You guys sent over some audio from a course on seduction, and oh man, let me tell you, this stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, it is really interesting how these principles of influence that we often see in marketing or sales or even just negotiating
Hmm?
can be used in other areas of life,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when it comes to attraction and building relationships.
It's like a secret decoder ring for figuring out, like, what makes people tick. And if you know anything about me, you know I love cracking codes. And you know what's even cooler? This course actually uses, like, a foundational text on persuasion. It's called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini. Have you heard of that one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a classic.
Total classic. And they basically take the 6 key principles from Cialdini's work and apply them, get this, directly to the art of seduction. I'm hooked already, and we're just getting started.
So the 6 principles are liking, social proof, commitment and consistency, scarcity, authority, and reciprocity. And these provide, well, they kind of give us a framework for how we're influenced and also how we can influence others.
Okay, so let's break these down one by one, because I'm already thinking about like how they play out when it comes to, attraction and dating. So first up, liking. It seems pretty obvious you're more likely to be persuaded by someone you like, right? But how do you actually like create that sense of liking, especially when you're trying to make a good first impression?
Well, think about a friend who could probably talk you into anything. They probably make you laugh. They're a good listener and they seem to genuinely enjoy your company.
Yeah.
So all of those are elements of creating liking. It's about building that rapport, finding common ground, and showcasing, the best parts of yourself.
So it's not about like using some cheesy pickup line or pretending to be someone you're not. It sounds like authenticity is actually more important.
Oh yeah, for sure. People can usually spot fakeness, instantly. Being genuinely interested, wanting to connect with the other person, that's way more compelling.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's move on to social proof. I feel like we all know this one, even if we don't realize it. Like, we look to others for cues on how to behave, what to believe, and yeah, even who to find attractive. This course used an example that was so good, it really stuck with me. It was the classic, a guy walks into a bar with 2 women on his arms, and suddenly he seems way more interesting to every other woman in the bar, right? Why is that?
That's social proof in action.
Yeah.
We sort of assume that if other people find someone attractive or desirable, there must be a reason. It's like a subconscious endorsement.
It's like that if everyone's doing it, it must be cool mentality, right? I remember when fidget spinners were a thing. I only bought one because all the kids at the park had them. Totally fell for that whole social proof trap.
Yep, that's a great example.
All right, next up is commitment and consistency. This principle is all about our desire to stay consistent with our past actions, even the small ones. Can you think of any real world examples where you've seen this play out?
Oh yeah, tons. Remember those I voted stickers?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Those aren't just a badge of honor. They're also a way of, encouraging consistency. When you wear one, you're basically saying to the world, hey, I'm the kind of person who votes.
Yeah.
And that actually makes you more likely to vote in the future.
That's so clever. It's like a little nudge towards sticking to your word, even if it's just about voting.
Yeah, exactly. And there was this really cool marketing campaign from Tide. I think it was a few years, but they encouraged people to make a public commitment to using Tide, even if it was something small. And that really ended up boosting their brand loyalty.
That's brilliant. It makes you wonder how many seemingly insignificant choices we make actually shape our behavior down the line, right?
Hmm.
All right, on to scarcity. This one is all about FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Limited editions, exclusive deals, they all make us crave things even more, even if we didn't really want them in the first place.
Exactly. It's that sense of urgency and value that scarcity creates. And, think about it in the context of dating. If someone is always available, they're actually probably more likely to be taken for granted. A little bit of mystery, being a little, hard to get, can actually make someone more attractive.
Ooh, scarcity in dating. Okay, I can already see how this one can be a total game changer. I'm sensing a future deep dive dedicated entirely to this one. But before we get sidetracked, let's talk about authority. Why are we so quick to defer to experts or people in positions of power? What is it about those figures that makes us more susceptible to their influence?
Well, think about a doctor. They have the white coat, the stethoscope, right?
Yeah.
And those things instantly convey a sense of authority and expertise, even if you've never met that particular doctor before. We're basically conditioned to trust people who seem knowledgeable and credible.
Oh, totally. It's like those ads that say 9 out of 10 dentists recommend. Even though I know it's marketing, I still find myself thinking, well, they're the experts, so they must be right.
Exactly.
And last but not least, we have reciprocity. The idea that, like, if someone does something nice for us, we feel obligated to do something nice for them in return. It's kind of a fundamental rule of social interaction, right?
Yeah, it was like that you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. We're wired to want to repay favors and acts of kindness. It's probably why those free samples at the grocery store work so well.
You try a piece of cheese and suddenly you feel like you have to buy the whole block.
Exactly. Those small gestures of goodwill can actually make people much more likely to want to reciprocate.
So we've covered the big six. It's amazing how these principles can be applied to like everything from marketing to, well, as we're seeing, seduction. Were there any other interesting points or examples from the course that like really stood out to you?
Yeah, there were a couple of other things. They talked about this thing called the contrast principle. It had something to do with pool tables, and I thought it was a really fascinating example.
Oh yeah, tell me about that one. I love a good counterintuitive example.
Okay, so imagine you're shopping for a pool table, right? And the salesperson shows you a really basic model for, let's say, $1,000. Then they show you a mid-range model for $5,000. That $5,000 table is suddenly going to seem like a huge splurge, right?
Yeah, to be like, whoa, hold on, let me think about this.
Exactly. But now imagine they start by showing you a super high-end deluxe model for $10,000. Then they bring you back down to that $5,000 table. Suddenly, it doesn't seem as expensive, does it?
Wow, that's such a sneaky sales tactic, but it's so clever. Our brains are constantly making these comparisons, and those comparisons totally affect how we perceive value.
Exactly. And the course was suggesting that this even applies to attractiveness. Like if you're surrounded by people who are less attractive, you'll probably be perceived as more attractive in comparison.
It's all about context.
That is wild. Okay, so we have these 6 principles of persuasion, this contrast principle, and then they also talked about these things called S tests, which honestly sounded a little intimidating. Can you explain what those are all about and like how they fit into this whole seduction thing?
So think of S tests as these challenges or tests that, that some women might use to kind of figure out a guy's confidence, his boundaries, things like that. It might be a comment or an action designed to provoke a reaction. And how the guy responds can really reveal a lot about his self-respect and his ability to, like, stand his ground.
So it's like a test of character, a way to see if a guy will like cave under pressure or stand firm in his values.
Exactly. Like they gave an example of a woman teasing a man about his clothes or making some kind of comment that's, subtly disrespectful. If he gets all flustered and starts apologizing, he might be failing the test. But if he responds calmly and assertively, like he's not going to let her disrespect him, then he passes the test. It all comes back to that self-respect, right? Knowing your worth and not letting anyone walk all over you. It sounds like that's a pretty major theme running through this whole course.
Yeah, it is. It emphasizes that self-respect is crucial in seduction.
Right.
It's not about being a pushover or trying to please everyone. It's about having standards and, really owning who you are.
That is so important, and not just in dating, but in life in general.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the 6 principles, the contrast principle, this whole S-test concept. But there's one more piece to this puzzle that I'm really curious to explore, and that is the role of beliefs. Because it seems like this course really emphasizes how much our beliefs shape our experiences, especially when it comes to seduction.
Absolutely. Our beliefs are like these mental filters, right?
Sure.
They shape how we see the world and how we interact with other people. And one of the beliefs that the course highlights is the idea that every woman wants to be seduced, but it has to be done in the right way. It's like a combination lock,
Yeah.
Finding the right approach will unlock her interest.
Okay, that's a really interesting way to put it. Like, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to seduction. Each woman has her own unique combination. But how do you even begin to figure out what that combination is? I'm guessing getting to know her is a good place to start, real.
Definitely. The more you understand about a woman, her personality, what she's into, her values, the better you'll be at connecting with her. It's about finding those points of resonance, building that genuine rapport.
It's like solving a puzzle, but a puzzle that you actually want to solve. It's
Like-
not a chore, it's something you enjoy figuring out.
Exactly.
And it all ties back to what we were saying earlier about authenticity and connection. Like being genuinely interested in the other person, not just trying to use some formula to get what you want.
Right, and that's where those principles of persuasion come into play. They're not about manipulation. They're about understanding the dynamics of how humans interact and then using that knowledge to build connections that are actually enjoyable and rewarding for both people.
It's like having that decoder ring for understanding human behavior, but then like choosing to use that knowledge
Yeah,
responsibly.
exactly.
Now, this is where things start to get really interesting because we've laid the groundwork, but we still need to talk about how to apply these principles, like practically. How can we actually use them to build real connections? And that's exactly what we're going to be digging into next time. So stay tuned. Okay, so welcome back to our deep dive into the psychology of persuasion. We've got those 6 principles from Dr. Cialdini's work, but now, like, the real question is, how do those principles actually play out in the real world, especially when we're talking about, building attraction and connection with someone?
Right, that's where things get a little more practical. Understanding the ideas is one thing, but using them is, well, that's another challenge entirely. This course we've been looking at, it actually offers some really cool insights into like how to actually do that. And the first thing it emphasizes is that seduction, real seduction, it's not about manipulation or tricks. It's about like creating a genuine experience, something that's enjoyable for both people.
So we're ditching the cheesy pickup lines and the whole, like, pretending to be someone you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Being authentic, that's way more important. People can usually tell when someone's not being real.
Oh, for sure.
Is that genuine interest, wanting to connect with someone for who they are, that's
Yeah,
way more attractive.
that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's go back to those 6 principles of persuasion and see how they might apply to, the dating world. Let's start with liking. We already said that you're more likely to be persuaded by someone you like, but how do you actually make someone like you, especially when you're first meeting them?
Well, think about it. What makes you like someone? Shared interests, maybe a good sense of humor, or even just having a conversation that's actually engaging. Someone who listens and makes you feel like they're actually paying attention. Those are all part of building rapport and connection. And this course really emphasizes the importance of finding that common ground, talking about what you're passionate about, and really listening to what the other person has to say.
So it's not about trying to, like, brag or dominate the conversation.
Right. It's not about trying to impress them with your own stories. It's about creating a space where you can both connect on a deeper level.
Got it. So how about social proof? We talked about the example of the guy walking into the bar with 2 women on his arms, which instantly made him seem more desirable. But is there a way to apply this principle without, resorting to some sort of, like, staged performance? Can it be done authentically?
Oh, absolutely. It's not about surrounding yourself with people just to like boost your image. It's about showcasing your genuine social value. Be comfortable in social situations, have real conversations with people, and let your personality come through.
So it's more about, like, just being yourself, being comfortable and confident.
Exactly, because people are drawn to that. They can sense when someone is being genuine, and that's what's really attractive.
Okay, cool. Now, what about commitment and consistency? We know that even small commitments can influence our future behavior. So how does that translate to the dating world?
It's about getting the other person to invest in the interaction, even in small ways. Like ask for their opinion on something, maybe let them choose where you sit or do some activity together. These little things, they create a sense of like a shared experience, and that builds momentum.
It's almost like you're, like, building a bridge, starting with small steps and gradually getting to the other side.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of building momentum, let's talk about reciprocity, that idea that we naturally want to return favors, right? So how can we use that to create connection and attraction?
I'm thinking simple things like, being chivalrous, holding a door open, giving a genuine compliment, or just, being a good listener. Are those the sorts of things you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. It's about being considerate, showing that you're paying attention and that you're genuinely interested in the other person. Little things like that can go a long way.
So chivalry isn't dead. It's more about just being respectful and attentive.
Right, exactly.
Okay, makes sense. Now, how about scarcity? I know we talked about how playing hard to get can make someone seem more desirable, but where's the line between being interested and just being, like, totally unavailable?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely not about playing games or trying to manipulate anyone. It's more about valuing your own time and energy. Like, don't be afraid to say no if you're genuinely busy or just not feeling it. If you have a fulfilling life outside of dating, that actually makes you more interesting.
So it's okay to have hobbies, passions, things that you're committed to outside of dating.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows that you're a well-rounded person, and that's attractive.
Okay, I like that. So last one, authority. We know that people are drawn to those who seem knowledgeable and confident. But how do you project that authority without coming across as like arrogant or overbearing?
Right. It's not about trying to dominate the conversation or like boss someone around. It's more about being comfortable taking the lead sometimes, making suggestions, and just generally being confident in yourself.
So confidence, not arrogance.
Got it. Okay, so we've revisited those 6 principles, but what about that whole combination lock metaphor? That idea that each woman has her own unique combination that unlocks attraction. How do you even start to figure out what that combination is?
That's where it gets really interesting. It's about observation, being genuinely interested, and really getting to know someone. What makes her laugh, what she's passionate about, her values, even her deal breakers. The more you understand her, the better equipped you'll be to connect with her in a way that's meaningful.
So it's a journey of discovery, like figuring out what makes someone tick.
Exactly.
I like that. Now, I want to hear more about those additional beliefs from the course, especially that idea that, like, every woman wants to be seduced. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so the idea is that women, they have this deep desire to feel desired,
Hmm.
to be pursued. But it has to be done in a way that's respectful, genuine, and empowering. It's not about using tricks or trying to pressure someone into anything. So it's about creating that spark, that excitement, but always with respect for the other person's feelings and boundaries.
Exactly. And confidence is a big part of that. If you believe in yourself and your own worth, you'll project that. And that can be really attractive.
It all comes back to self-belief, huh?
It really does. And that's where those S tests come back in. It's about having the self-respect and confidence to, like, stand your ground, not let anyone try to manipulate or disrespect you.
Knowing your worth and not settling for anything less. This is all so insightful. It's like a crash course in attraction and connection. But how do we translate all of this into action? Like, what are some specific things our listeners can do to actually build those connections?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in the final part of our deep dive. So stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the psychology of persuasion. And I feel like at this point, we've covered a lot of ground. We've got those 6 principles. We've talked about S tests, and we even cracked the code on that whole combination lock metaphor. But now, like, let's get real. How can our listeners actually use all this information to, create those sparks, those genuine connections out there in the real world?
Well, it really comes down to, putting those principles into practice. And remember, the goal isn't to like manipulate anyone or use these things as tricks. It's about presenting your best self and creating an experience that's actually positive and enjoyable for both people.
So no smoke and mirrors, no trying to like fit yourself into some mold that you think will work.
Exactly. Just be genuine, be respectful, be interested. Those are the most important things.
I love that. Simple, but so important. Now, what about those 6 principles we keep talking about? How can people actually use them, in a way that feels natural, especially when it comes to like, dating and relationships?
Well, let's start with liking. We like people who we enjoy spending time with, right? It's kind of obvious. So how do you create that? Find common ground. What are you both passionate about? What makes you both laugh? Share those things. And really listen to what she has to say. Ask questions, be empathetic, let her know you're genuinely interested in who she is.
So it's not about trying to impress her with like all your accomplishments or stories.
No, not at all. It's about creating a space where you can connect on a deeper level.
Got it. So what about social proof? We talked about that example of the guy walking into the bar with 2 women on his arms, which totally made him seem more attractive. But can you use that principle, without being fake or manipulative about it?
Yeah, of course. You don't need to like create a fake entourage or anything. It's more about subtly showing your genuine social value. Be comfortable being social, talk to people, and just let your personality shine through.
So no need to hire a wingman or anything.
Nope. Just be yourself. People are drawn to that.
Okay, cool. So commitment and consistency. We know that even small commitments can have a big impact on our behavior. How does that work in dating?
Think of it like building a bridge, you know? You start with small steps, building up to something bigger. So maybe ask her opinion on something, or let her pick where you sit, engage her in some fun activity. Those little things help create a shared experience.
And that helps to build momentum.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, reciprocity, that
Mhm.
idea of wanting to return favors, how can that help build connection and attraction?
Simple acts of kindness go a long way. Give her a compliment, hold the door open, listen when she's talking, just little things like that.
So being a gentleman, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It
Hmm.
shows you're considerate and attentive, and that encourages a more positive dynamic between you.
Okay, makes sense. Now, how about scarcity? This one seems a little tricky. We talked about playing hard to get, but like, where's the line between being interested and being totally unavailable?
Yeah, it's a balance for sure. But it's not about playing games. It's about like valuing your time and your energy. Don't be afraid to say no if you're busy or not feeling it. If you have a life outside of dating, that actually makes you more interesting.
Oh, so having hobbies and passions is actually a good thing.
It's a great thing. It shows you're a well-rounded person.
Okay, I like that. And finally, authority. We talked about how people are drawn to those who seem like knowledgeable and confident, but how do you do that without being arrogant?
Yeah, it's definitely not about trying to be the alpha or anything like that. It's about being comfortable taking the lead sometimes,
Mm.
making suggestions, showing you're confident in who you are.
So it's about confidence, not arrogance.
Right.
Okay, got it. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to touch on that combination lock idea again. The idea that each woman has her own, like, unique combination. So how do you figure out what that is?
It takes time. You got to get to know her. What makes her laugh? What are her passions, her
Hmm.
deal breakers? The more you understand her, the better you'll be at connecting with her on a deeper level.
It's like solving a puzzle, but a fun one.
Exactly.
And it all goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time. Authenticity, genuine connection, respect. Those are the foundations.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, to wrap things up, enjoy the process, be yourself, and keep those 6 principles in mind. You never know when they might come in handy.
Yeah, and remember, these things, they apply to way more than just dating. They can help you in all sorts of situations.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of the psychology of persuasion and seduction. Until next time.
See you then.